Welcome to the Cinephile Hissy podcast, the tirade-filled movie debate podcast hosted by two film critics, cool dads, and struggling teachers. I'm Don Shanahan.
I'm William Johnson.
We're damn glad to have you, folks. This is all for tantrum's sake, where shared passions and high fives wash away any place for hate. In the end, we encourage you all to love what you love, but for now, the gloves are off and the hissy fit is on. This week, we have a guest, a very tolerant guest. It is Mitch Proctor, the man of Ruminations Radio Network, who sits through our needlessly horrible recordings and edits them down to the beautiful finished products that you hear every day. He has come here to us to recommend the movie The Crow from 1994. Our format is this. The recommending lover goes first, and I'm pretty sure we're going to give Mitch the red carpet to go first. They get 5 uninterrupted minutes to shower their praise and state their high-minded case. The hater, and I want to see who it's going to be in this room, follows with 5 Ooh, shit. The hater follows with 5 uninterrupted minutes of their own to present their counterpoints with any manner of scorched intellectual I'm sorry here. With any manner of intellectual scorched earth. Good luck editing that, Mitch. After that, we open it up for 15, but I bet it's going to be 20 to 30 minutes of shared conversation where the hissy fit really gets chippy. We hope you got your judge's scorecard. The Crow wins and Will loses. But folks, in the meantime, we still have to battle it out. So let's go. Ladies and gentlemen, we would love to welcome to the Cinephile Hissy Fit Mitch Proctor. Mitch, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks for going with this selection.
Right,
I mean, you're kind of the boss, so I mean, do you really have a choice?
I know, right? Yeah, you say jump, we say how high, and here we are. Right?
I'm really excited. A little bit intimidated, though. Being right here with a couple of genuine film guys, and I'm just a little old fan here,
That's
so
okay.
you'll
Well,
have
here,
to forgive me.
I will sound like the movie Brown Sugar. I will put my Sanaa Lathan hat on and say, Mitch, when did you fall in love with movies and how so?
Oh, really?
Yes. Because you're here.
Make it quick, because we don't have like another podcast where we can just have the guest talk for 40 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
I fell in love with movies from the time I was a small kid. I've always loved movies. I loved watching, and I don't know where I would have seen these things, but I used to watch a lot of behind the scenes, how they do that kind of films. I mean, or maybe it was on TV, but I loved watching that kind of stuff. I loved the creation of the film. My mother always thought I was going to grow up to be, work behind the scenes and do special effects or something, because I love that stuff. I love where it comes from. So I've always loved film. My first love, though, is music, and I went to school for composition. I wanted to write music for movies.
Okay.
Wow. What is your what would you say your so you wanted to write film scores? Is that what it comes to? Is that like the fancy way of saying film score?
Film scores. Well, I mean, I was a rock kid, so I mean, rock band would have been first choice. Film scores was the fallback.
You could do both. But what would you say was, because you like music, and obviously film plays into that in terms of like you wanted to do composition for films. You don't have to give me the number one, because I know that's hard, because there's so many different types of style of film scores. But what would you say were some of your inspirational film scores that got you into wanting to do like film composition?
Great question.
I think, for someone of my generation, it has to be John Williams.
Mm-hmm.
But later in life, I have to say that I'm not a big fan. Like, obviously, as a kid, that stuff really, really got me going. But as time has gone on, I can't say that I really am still following his work and really love it. So,
who would you say? I mean, who are you into now, or who has taken the cake for you instead of Williams?
I hate to be kind of the moment, but Reznor and Atticus, they just do such amazing stuff. And then I don't want to spoil what's upcoming, but I'd have to say Graham Revell.
Interesting.
That kind of does segue us into the movie of the moment, and that is 1994's Alex Proyas. I'm pretty sure I'm saying it wrong. Alex Proyas's dark fantasy comic book adaptation of Alex O'Barr's The Crow. And we come to this with the same format we presented before. I guess we should keep things tight and give the 5-minute timer floor to our guest first.
Oh God.
I know, right? So hold on, let me get the clock ready here because this shit is serious here. All right, Mitch, 5 minutes. Open us up and present the wonderful love you have of the Crow.
Okay. So first things first, let's get some vocabulary out of the way, which is really funny because we just got finished chatting about favorites versus best.
Mm-hmm.
And the do I think that The Crow is the best film of all time or the best film I've ever seen? No. But, how do we really quantify art anyway? So I'm going to start my 5 minutes with this just to prep you guys. The Crow is, however, my favorite film of all time. I love this movie.
Oh.
It is my favorite film,
Not
bar
everyone
none.
can like Blade Runner 2049 for no good reason. So you're good. You're good. You're good.
But like all taste and preference come from somewhere, right? So for me, I have to tell the little story real quick of how I was a junior in high school in the spring that this film came out. This moody, gothy little metal teen who loved the comic book and heard that this film was going to happen, and I didn't get a chance to see it because I was living in a little small town, and so that fall, my buddies and my girlfriend they all got together and bought me the VHS, and they had a little secret surprise party for me to watch The Crow. So already the stage is set for this to be my favorite movie of all time. And from the very moment that the film begins, the brass, the percussion that's going on that brings us into the film, just right off the bat, that's great. The voiceover that the little girl is giving sets up the mythos like immediately, so you're kind of in for something that is not just uh, rooted in reality. I love the colors, the tones. When I say the colors, it's almost like really the absence of color. It looks like they painted an entire city black, and I love that. Obviously, love black. So that was just gorgeous, and, the characters in the film are just so real, from the guy who's serving the hot dogs to Officer Albrecht. They're just these real guys, these real things in this film that's about something that is completely unreal, something that we can't even quite imagine. So, first of all, super romantic. I mean, it doesn't get any
Mm-hmm.
more romantic. You're coming back from the dead to avenge your killed loved one. The whole idea just really rang true for me. I love love. I'm not gonna make any apologies for it. I love, like, romantic comedies. I enjoy those things, but I've got with a little dark metal guy
Mhm.
still. So it was like, "Wow, this is great. Real love is forever." I love The Ring. I even bought the little ring. I was just like it's just a wonderful experience for me to watch that movie, and I watch it many times over the course of even 1 year. I will always watch it in October. It's endlessly quotable to me. Like, I think only next to maybe something like Lebowski is something as
Hmm.
quotable as The Crow. The soundtrack, aside from just the score, really encapsulates everything that's going on in the world at the time. Even though the comic really took place in the '80s and was kind of leaning more heavily on like Joy Division, the Cure, the modern soundtrack still really hit all the right notes. The villains are great. I thought that Tintin was really, 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 really good, and the fights are so brutal and they're violent. When Eric Draven, when Brandon Lee is fighting and acting as this kind of demon come back from the dead, the hero, he's enjoying it. He embraces the vengeance side of it. It's not just like this guy who's getting his revenge. He's also enjoying it, and I love revenge. I love revenge films. I guess maybe I don't love revenge. I love justice. So I love that aspect of the movie. Um, it means a lot to me, that film. The idea that love can kinda triumph over all, and, I don't think that I'm really hitting the points enough for your film critic audience, but
No, no, no.
You're doing
Doing
fine.
great.
the fact that every little motion, the moves of Draven as he goes, like, through the course of the film really, communicate that longing, that loss until the moment he lies down on the grave at the end, and we kinda come full circle. It's just I I can't think of a better way to do it. I love that movie. That's it. That's all I got.
Right at
Whoa.
5 minutes. Perfectly done, my friend. Good job. All right. No, sure. Let me reload the 5 minutes. I have to come into this as the second lever because the hater goes last. So, Mitch, you did just fine. Sounding like a film critic and stepping up to the film critic stage because the things you speak on are absolutely wondrous, unique, and just gripping, no matter how dark, muted, and rainy they are. The atmosphere of this movie. This movie was shot in Wilmington, North Carolina, not anywhere near Detroit. And you would never know because, like you said, they painted this city black and did these hovering camera shots. This is a cinematography standpoint. This is Darius Wolski, who would go on to be Ridley Scott's kind of right hand man over the last decade, and it's just shot so just in your face and in a fluid way. And I'm with you. What I love about this movie is pure romance and just that romantic longing that brings a guy back from the dead to go be a wraith against crime and punishment. And that's a thing that has a wonderfully small scale compared to what we think of as comic book films and superhero films because 9 times out of 10 movies of this particular genre feel like they have to save the whole damn city or save the whole world and have mythos and pathos that are just large and huge enough that the public has to see this, the public has to see that, and they need to be embraced and championed and all that. This movie is just a dude coming back from the dead to avenge his girl, and if the only witnesses to that are a skateboarding little girl and a wounded cop, that's it. None of this is for headlines. None of this is for improving the city. It's just this singular quest. And I dig that. It is, there's power to that. There's power to the laser focus that this film has, or at least this hero has, to met out the violence that he does and correct the wrongs that are out there. And because if this was a different kind of superhero movie, the media would link on and be like, there's a vigilante in Detroit killing all these different people. We should love this guy because he's killing scumbags. No, it is just between him and the vendettas that got him to the grave. And I dig that. And to put that in such an artful package that it does with production design, with costume design, with the makeup, with the violence, with the pacing, man, I'm with you, Mitch. This movie is brilliant. It's one of my top 5 all-time comic book films, without a question. I will take this movie to. I'm a DC guy, where I grew up with Superman, who is tried and true, bright and glorious. As beautiful as a superhero and a paragon as you can get. I'll put this deep, dark, singular tale of redemption and romance to those movies, even though it's apples and oranges like crazy, because coming into it from the film lens, the art of it backs up the emotions and takeaways of it like crazy. I'm with you. I'm not a super music guy. I don't know all the drops and the significance of artist choice and all that. I do know the history of where Alex O'Barr really went to the 80s with Joy Division. I did do my homework on that, but this soundtrack, and to use what the young kids say, man, this soundtrack slaps. The cuts they grab of different artists along the way, and to have the performance, the almost diegetic music that's in the movie, just really serves that to add to the grunge of the setting and all that. But I'm with you from a film score standpoint. I love film scores. My goodness, it's the playlist on my iPad before or my iPod before anything else. Graham Revell steps up and delivers not just something that is foreboding and intimidating in the action and horror aspects of this movie, but my goodness, does he turn on the strings for when this movie has to get poignant, and he sells and squeezes every drop of emotionality you can get in a deep, dark, scary comic book movie. And man, like I said, I'll end 30 seconds early to say just what Mitch is saying. This movie is a special thing, and that's not even getting into talking about Brandon Lee and what this movie means for a legacy and for a career and for what this movie, the passion project that was rescued from tragedy to put on screen. This movie is one of the best that's ever been done in this genre, and damn, it is good.
Before I go into my 5 minutes, I just wanted to let Don know, because this will probably piss him off in some way. But the Crow was co-produced by an Australian gentleman named Grant Hill, who received 2 Oscar nominations in his future life from The Crow for Best Picture for 2 films
Ooh,
that Don loves: The Thin Red Line and Tree of Life.
shit, that figures. Oh
Anywho,
well, erase my 5 minutes. I hate the movie now. No, I can't. I can't hate it because of that. 5 minutes, go, my friend.
okay, so I'm not going to say I'm a hater. I say it because, to me, this has the classic student who gets an A+ on one report and an F on the other. It balances out to a solid C. So I don't hate the film. I actually love the first 45 minutes of this movie. I think that you've got this really groovy, grungy, and, to be honest, Australian feeling film, because Alex Proyas is Australian. A lot of the producers were Australian. When you think of things like um, what's his name, the guy who directed Mad Max,
George Miller.
George Miller. You kind of think of those down and dirty films that just have kind of an edge to them, the kind of a Australian Ozploitation kind of films.
Sure.
This definitely has that. It has a lot. It has a lot going for it. The mood. I think of the Crow. I just call him the Crow. Sitting on the roof, just playing his guitar in this very gothic, grungy, horrible Detroit. I don't know why anyone would live or even want to get married there, but they do anyway. Excellent stuff. Moody, brilliant atmosphere, gorgeous cinematography, wonderful set design and miniature work. It's very comic booky, which is great because I love comic books. I've never been a huge dark comic book fan. I tend to like the more colorful, positive, fun comic book stuff. But if it's done just right and not cynical, which is what Marvel and DC kind of did later in their runs, is they got dark to be cynical and aggro and broy. If it's done right, it's fine. The other thing that gives it 5 stars is this cast of B movie legends is flippin' fantastic. I mean, Ernie Hudson, Michael Wincott, Bai Ling, David Patrick Kelly, Tony Todd, John Polito. I mean, this is an insane cast of amazing character actors, B movie legends, horror guys, horror gals. Great stuff. My issue is where the F comes in, where the 1 star 45 minutes comes in, is I think that because I think the writers kind of write themselves in a little bit of a hole, and this might have something to do with the comic book origins, which I'm not totally familiar with, but the problem with the character of the Crow is he's virtually unstoppable. And in order to get the plot to move forward, you not only need to have a very bizarre and not very well written or executed situation in which somehow the Crow loses his powers but doesn't, because the Crow that comes with him has to die, but it doesn't. But also your main villain, who's very theatrical and seems to be smart in terms of running an organization, has to do really stupid things to get in situations where he's going to fight the Crow. To me, the turning point of the film is the boardroom scene, which actually I saw something on Twitter. Christopher Nolan actually lifted a lot of shots, shot for shot, of the scene of the Crow coming into the boardroom with the Joker coming into the boardroom in The Dark Knight. That's neither here nor there. But the problem with the film to me is it gets a little silly because it kind of betrays that cool gothic rock star feel and becomes a shoot 'em up and kind of a chase around town, battle with swords on the top of a roof of a church kind of thing. It just feels like it betrays its tone. And I feel like I'm not watching the same film that I got with that first 45 minutes. I feel like they just either ran out of time, ran out of money, ran out of ideas, put themselves in a hole. And unfortunately, that kind of ruined the film for me a little bit. So I'm not going to say I hate it because there's aspects of this I really love. But yeah, in the end, I just kind of thought, oh, it went that direction, huh? Okay. Well, I gave it 3 stars on Letterboxd, and that's the end of my 5 minutes.
That is indeed the end of your 5 minutes. Folks, before we get into our big, huge wraparound discussion, please enjoy a short announcement from the Ruminations Radio Network.
What's up, gang? This is Hoptimus. You've been listening to one of the great new podcasts from Ruminations Radio Network. If you want some more tasty sound vibes, come check out my new podcast, The Retro Futurist Culture, where we talk about alternate timelines, cyberpunk, anime, and other crazy worlds. If that does not strike your fancy, we have plenty of other great shows at ruminationsradionetwork.com.
All right, folks, welcome back. All right, you got 2 lovers, you got 1 medium guy. What do you want to pick on here, Mitch?
Well, I'll tell you that the change in tone, because you had kind of mentioned this before we got to the show, and I rewatched it again, and I don't feel the same change in tone that you're describing. But I mean, I'm not as versed, but I don't feel that, but they nail so much. And if there was a film that was able to combine, I love that you brought up the cast because Wincott is awesome. David Patrick Kelly, killer. I love that Candyman is in the movie. It's just one of the best combinations of music and visuals and script. And there are some bad lines. There are a couple like bad deliveries. There's a few things in there, and it kind of just reminds you of the whole thing. But man, what a work of love! The whole thing is just and Brandon Lee's, before I say anything else, his portrayal is just borderline madness, and it's so great.
Interesting. I want to talk about Brandon Lee because...
Well, here, before you talk about Brandon Lee, I'll back Mitch on the tone shift that I don't see it either. I see exactly the kind of escalation you would get in a comic book. The guy has gone through all the minions. He gets to the big boss at the end, and shit gets a little louder and a little bigger. We've seen that in 1,000 comic book issues, and we've seen it in 1,000 comic book movies.
I just don't see the way this character is written and how he's portrayed as this guy that's suddenly proto-matrixing it up with guns. That just doesn't work for me. You know what I mean? Like
funny you say that, because Proyas, who directed this movie, would go on to do a Matrix competitor in terms of Dark City, which is very middle of the road mixed reception in terms of audience and critics. So yeah, okay.
But if I may, can I go into Brandon Lee now? Okay.
You may. Well, don't go into Brandon Lee. The man is dead. Don't go into him.
Here's the thing. I want to talk.
Okay.
Now, I saw this film for the first time the other night, so I don't have like a lot of attachment to Brandon Lee. This is one thing I worried about with... We actually talked on the Ruminations of what the hell? What is it? Red Room. Sorry.
Oh boy. Get the show.
Here, we'll just roll that back. Ruminations from the Red Room.
Yep. Ruminations from the Red Room. Sorry about that. Okay, so
don't say sorry about that. He can't cut that together. Just start the sentence again. Good luck. Okay.
Well, we talked about putting things on a pedestal. Okay. I think let's take a look at another contemporary situation where you had a famous actor or someone who was borderline famous. Let's talk about Heath Ledger.
Oh shit! Here he goes. Invoke Heath Ledger.
No. So what I'm saying is that it is an excellent performance, but I think the fervor at the time, led by also the internet being active, kind of put that pedestal there, where it kind of said, not only is it a good performance, but it's a brilliant performance because he's dead now. You know what I mean? I don't
No,
think
I don't know what you mean, because
I
this would
don't
be
think.
brilliant with or without his death.
See, that's
Just
what
like Ledger. Just like
no,
Ledger.
no, and I'm not debating about Ledger. Now, here's the thing with Brandon Lee. I don't have that connection. Like I said, I didn't see it at the time it came out, so I wasn't kind of wrapped up in that mythology of Brandon Lee. And this kind of exists with James Dean too, and many other stars that died.
Fair enough.
So I was watching this purely as an acting performance. I wasn't attaching any of the facts that this was going to be his big breakout. This was like his epic thing. There was this tragic death. I just watched it from a pure acting perspective. I had two thoughts while I was watching the performance.
Uh-oh.
I either thought, I couldn't tell if it was a brilliant performance of madness or that it was so bad it was good.
Oh, dear.
Oh, no.
So I
Get him, Mitch.
I can't. I can't. I honestly
Did
can't.
you see the part where he pushed Tintin up against the wall and his voice is just shaking with rage?
Yes.
You know, that moment, it's so, and then
Yes.
music cuts out and you can just hear the rain and the water and Brandon's voice.
Yes.
Or when he says, does that hurt, when he's on Fun Boy's bed and he's hovering above him after he's shot him? Oh my gosh, it's a beautiful performance. I think it's the first one. I think it's the first one.
And then you see, like, and you combine the romantic, even though I know those all, like, you know, second layer footage, but just watching him be a romantic lead, even in flashback form, but to reflect on all that and to have little moments take that indomitable figure and freeze him in emotion because of something he remembers or something that spikes him. Shit, man, that is acting. I'm with Mitch
No,
here, man. It's good
yeah,
luck.
I
I
don't
cannot.
want to.
Ooh,
I don't want to
but you
say
did
it's
the whole. It's so
bad.
bad, it's good thing. Don't you dare! Don't you
There's
dare!
just, but there's aspects of the performance where I'm kind of like, that's what he went with. Okay.
Yeah,
But
and the choices fit the story. Choices fit the book. This is also another one of those situations where this is not Daniel Day-Lewis. You know, like, you know, he's
yeah,
getting into
true.
character through loss. He's getting into character through a little bit of face paint, a little bit of atmosphere. But yeah, he's not method acting his way through this. I'll grant that.
The face paint is so primal. It's so like, I'm getting ready for war.
You're damn right it is.
That's great.
Oh.
It fits.
And
it
the
makes
scene where
sense.
he puts it on, I know it likens to a different, you know, it feels like a superhero transformation, but it's just different. It's more carnal because you know, his hands are dirty and scarred up. It's not even pretty. It's the shattered mirror. The music is kicking in the background. I'll take that to Tony Stark building armor any day of the week. I poked the Marvel Shill. I poked the microphone.
I'm gonna let it pass. I'm gonna let it pass. You tried to do this in private too, and I don't.
I did.
I destroyed you privately. I'm not gonna destroy you publicly. So let's just move on.
Oh, bitch, please. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Mitch. You want to talk about editing? Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I just really, you know, and again, kind of from a layman's perspective, the editing is really kind of frantic sometimes.
Sure.
But just enough so that you're not overwhelmed. And the cuts between the current day of the black and white and blues to the warmth of the memories that he's experiencing, like that stuff is just, I think, communicates the whole.
Yeah, the neon lit color of the memories is a nice contrast to the monotoneness, or the what's the word for it? It's the Zack Snyder word, the monochromatic present, you know.
I agree with you. I agree with you up to the point where that boardroom scene happens, and I think it betrays that aesthetic. I really do. I don't think it feels the same.
It's kind of forward.
I know it just doesn't feel the same after that, and they set up so much style. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful film. Like you're saying, it's frenetic, it's kinetic, it has this great feeling. It's very unique. It's stylish. It has something that even today you don't see. It's very unique today. You could watch this today and be like, "Wow, that's really cool." Like I haven't seen anything like that.
This movie holds up, man. Like,
does big time.
Oh man,
it really does.
But like I said, I think my thing goes to all of it, from the writing to the editing to the appearance. I just think at one point they stopped doing what they were doing and go in a different direction. It's a major tonal shift for me.
Okay. Okay.
So I agree with you. Like another movie that I actually have the same exact feeling for.
Okay. I want to hear this comp.
Is Drive. Has anyone seen Drive?
Yeah,
With
I know
Ryan
that.
Gosling. The first 45 minutes, I think that's one of the coolest fucking films I've ever seen. There. And then the last 45 minutes, I'm like, oh, yeah, it turned into this.
Yeah. Okay.
That's my problem with The Crow. I feel like it's two different movies.
I see the roots of the comparison you're making, because Drive does kind of just turn, and I know you're a Gosling guy, but it's not the most gravitating performance in the world. I think. All right. Speaking of gravitating performances, I think that's where the same so-called shift you're seeing stays grounded or doesn't fly off the rails is because of Brandon Lee. I think Brandon Lee stays that tortured soul, stays that helpful, heroic,
he gets quippy though. He gets quippy.
He does. But
towards the end, he was not quippy before. And that last 45 minutes, he's
no.
He's
quippy in the pawn shop.
He's quippy from the first murder to the last murder. He's with the guys he's taken down.
He has some lines, but like
lines are quips.
No. He has like a couple of like dark, it's line readings, but then like he's doing like, oops, that hurt, shucks, like it turns into quips. It turns into jokey quips.
Oh,
and like I said, I don't mind that with the Tony Stark, because that's consistent with the tone. Okay. The Crow kind of becomes like this quippy jokester. And before he's on a roof just jamming out some fucking killer riffs on a roof.
Yeah, but he overbalances that to the very end with the "I need to take care of the people who take care of me," whether it's the girl or his departed fiance. Like, and never goes away, and that saves me from quippiness.
And I will say this, and this may transition a little bit into Mitch's love of music.
Okay.
One thing, even though I did not like the tonal shift for me, the one thing I did love is the final battle on the roof between Michael Wincott and Brandon Lee with the swords. The music selection, the score, is actually very low key and angelic instead of being very pomp and circumstance. And I really love that. I was like, what a great artistic choice, because it almost adds more gravity to it, because it's almost like you're seeing this kind of, I don't know, this heavenly battle, like it's people that don't belong on this earth, they're just evil and good and all that.
You're right. In a different movie, they pump up like a Lalo Schifrin level of like danger music, they would overamp that, and they don't.
Yeah, that's where I don't
see Mitch, hop in and talk some more.
Well, I think that's one of the places where I see I don't see your idea of the tonal shift because of something like that. It's still that moody, artistic, stylistic, great moment, and where someone else would have chosen something pumped up, they went in a completely different direction that is in keeping with the beginning and the rest of the.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to say it's a complete abandonment of the entire theme of the entire thing, because I'm separating it into halves, because I'm saying 45 and 45. It's easy for me to see a breaking point. Is there moments in that last 45 where they stick to the tone? Yes. I'm just saying in general, it totally betrays that first 45 minutes where it's very tonally consistent. Like, I feel like the first 45 minutes is almost a film in itself, in that it is confident, original, stylish, and then I think it takes choices that makes it a little bit more generic, makes it a little bit more, and yes, that music portion, I mentioned it because that stood out to me. I went, oh, that's cool. That feels like the first 45 minutes, but that's a 2-minute section of 45 minutes that I felt betrayed the original theme of the film.
Oh, man. Mitch, tell us some more about the music. You come from that level. Let's hear some more.
Well, I For one, I loved the integration of the live acts performing. Like, at the time
Yeah.
the film came out and the industrial thing that was going on, you have, My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult, Medicine, those performances were making the world real
Yeah.
in a way that I think you can't get unless you have a live performance, and those were live performances, like, the recordings and the soundtrack are not those same performances,
Mhm.
so that was really, really fantastic, and I think you hit on something about with Graham and the strings, the romance and the
Amazing.
longing that is communicated with that stuff, the way that he does it is really great, and it's one of the best love themes, I think, of all time. I put that soundtrack on the score rather all the
Mhm.
Mm,
time. I love it.
Right there with
And
you.
then, I just
And from
can't
such an
help
unassuming place, because Graham
yeah,
Revell before and after has not done that much since, but
not really.
man, did he nail that one.
I mean, he's done a
Jane's
lot of stuff though. I mean,
Oh no, he's prolific, but the height he got there
yeah,
never been matched.
gotcha.
I tried to follow his work after, and it never did reach quite those heights
Yeah,
again. But again, it might be the influence of the perfect storm that was
that's
that
true.
film. Jane Seabury's the It Can't Rain All the Time. The heartbeat of the drum and the bass is a little too on the nose,
Okay.
but it still gets there. You know, it's like
Mm,
it's got that thud thud
Yeah.
thud thud
yeah,
that brings you in, but too much.
and speaking of the soundtracks, like the musical soundtrack, not the score. Even though I just saw this movie for the first time, um, 4 days ago or whatever, um, I had the soundtrack for this and The Crow City of Angels. I had that
Okay.
soundtrack on CD, so I was in touch with the music of this film because, like you said, I mean, this is like a murderer's row of like some amazingly diverse acts too. I
Yes.
mean, like we've got The Cure, Stone Temple Pilots, but then you got Nine Inch Nails, Rage Against the Machine, Violent Femmes,
Yep.
Rollins Band, Pantera,
Mhm.
the Jesus and Mary chain, and Crow City of Angels has the same thing. You got Iggy Pop and Hole, and then you got
Right.
Bush and Corn. It's like very strange mixed PJ Harvey and then some
Yeah.
rappers, and so very eclectic, but suitable to the film. I never felt that the musical choices ever shifted. There is
Sure.
less needle drops in that last 45 minutes that I had a problem with than there is at the beginning.
Okay.
But needless to say, but that is a monumental soundtrack because even for like if a soundtrack is good when you haven't even seen the film and you have the soundtrack. That's how cool it is.
That's right.
So
Now, Mitch, I'm not that I'm trying to squeeze two shows into one here a little bit. Did you ever see the sequel?
I've seen anything with the words of the Crow. I've
Yeah.
read, more of the comic books and novels than I would care to admit. I was lucky enough to meet James O'Barr at a con
Look
once
at you.
nice.
and was super kind, and it was a real thrill for me because again, it's one of my favorites. I loved the book before the film came out, and
Yeah.
then the film really just drove it home for me, and I'm an
Now,
eternal fan.
you get to be the guy of the panel here because I have not gone back to read the graphic novel. I think I flipped through it 1,000 years ago, but I don't know it now. Do you feel, other than the '80s setting that you said was a difference and shifted to the '90s of when they made the movie? Do you feel like it's a good match, a good adaptation?
I think it's a great adaptation, which kind of makes me sad that they've tried so many years to reboot it and they wanna do
Oh,
it again.
I was
But I
reading that
understand that James
progress,
wants
and
to
oh
do it.
my gosh, that they have played hot potato with that project for
Mhm,
the better
mhm.
part of 2 decades.
Yeah. I hope they don't.
I hope they
I
don't
would
too.
really rather they do another one of the stories from the mythos. There was some really great, uh, female crows,
Yeah.
for lack of a better term, that were fantastic in the comics, and I wish they would do that.
Now,
Yeah,
did you see I
yeah.
think same question I started with. Did you see Crow
Yeah.
City of Angels in
I
'96?
I did see it. I saw it at the
Me
theater.
too.
At the time, I was not a fan.
Yeah.
Really wasn't. I wasn't impressed. I didn't like the color. I didn't like the cuts. I didn't. It
Yeah.
just seemed,
Just
and
different.
I think some of it was kind of forced. But
I agree.
in in later years, I've grown to appreciate it a little more.
Me too.
Maybe because some of the other stuff was so bad.
I've never seen it. I've never seen the Crow Salvation, the Crow Wicked Prayer. Even though there's some good casts in those. I
Sure.
mean, uh,
Salvation was decent.
Salvation has Kirsten Dunst, Fred Ward. Wicked Prayer has Dennis fucking Hopper in it. So it's like holy shit. Danny Trejo, Edward Furlong. Um,
Mitch,
But
would you recommend him deep diving into some of these sequels, even if they're direct-to-video style stuff?
It's a great property, and if you like the idea of, uh, the bad guys getting their comeuppance,
Mm-hmm.
it's a great series. But yeah, they're
how about the show? How about the show Stairway to Heaven with Mark Dacascos?
Oh gosh.
I'm sorry, there's a show? What? There's not a show.
Yes, there is.
There's your answer.
There was
There's
a
your answer.
there was a 2-season show with Mark
Uh-huh.
Dacascos from Canada called The Crow Stairway to Heaven. It had 22 episodes.
I'm sorry, you're cutting out. I can't hear you.
Hold on. Mitch, you run the audio of this shit. Come on, you hear him.
Yeah, I'm going through a tunnel, huh?
The house is going through a tunnel. Yeah. But yeah, if you get a chance, City of Angels is definitely worth a watch. Like I
think
said,
so,
at the
too.
time, I was probably just too attached to Brandon Lee and the original, but it was a solid flick.
Okay.
I think people find those. I mean, like for instance, I'm a big Hellraiser fan. I like the Hellraiser films. Like I can watch Hellraiser 6 and be like, I really love that film, and people would look at you and go, "What?" Like, I think if you're into an idea, you can watch that idea in different forms and different states of production, big
Right.
budget versus,
Sure.
and find value in it. So if you're saying that, since you love the first one, you still like that idea going through,
Mm-hmm.
I say, why the hell not try it out? I have, I think Stairway to Heaven's on HBO Max as well. Or not Stairway to Heaven, sorry. City of Angels, I think, is on HBO Max as well. So
I'll look it up here quick. Let me see what I can find here while we're doing
It's hard to track down on disc anymore. It's gotten kind of pricey, strangely.
It's
And
one
even
of
the
those
Blu-ray
weird
had a
ones.
really bad just stereo transfer. There was no 5.1. There was nothing. So, but check it out. If nothing else, Iggy Pop's performance is really good.
Iggy Pop is a toast. It is indeed on HBO Max. So good spine, Will.
Oh, cool. Oh, yeah. So I, definitely want to I might give that a shot.
All
so
right.
what the hell?
So I'll throw a fun little nugget out there just because I learned this today and in the years of history of trying to chase this film. I did not know until today, I was today years old, whatever meme I'm going to put here, that future John Wick filmmaker Chad Stahelski was the physical stunt double for Brandon Lee, completing the scenes that they were able to not complete or fill in.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. I read that yesterday too. That's interesting.
Not bad. Very cool thing.
Can you, Mitch? I'm just curious, and maybe Don too.
Uh-huh.
But I wasn't necessarily looking out for it. I could kind of notice a little bit here and there. But do you watch the film and kind of know, okay, that's not Brandon Lee? Like, do you know those scenes? Can you feel that?
I do.
I ignore them.
I do. I ignore them too.
Really
I'm just happy they're there.
Yeah.
It's not intrusive. It's not intrusive at all. It's actually very well done. I just was curious if you can tell, because some things you can definitely tell, but then there's some other ones where you're like, oh shit, it's kind of like the whole thing with Gladiator and Oliver Reed, where you're like, oh shit, that was a CGI? That wasn't Oliver Reed? That they do that so well. It's directed so well.
They do mask it well, especially considering the limitations of 1994 effects. Like, this could have easily looked like Spawn 3 years later, where it's like really cartoonishly bad special effects. And like I said towards the beginning of my rant, this movie, you saw it. You can pop this in, and it holds up. You don't need a cell phone. You don't need big things to show up to be, it's a modern film or a time capsule to the 90s. It does just fine being the comic book noir that it is.
And I'm a big fan of, despite my Marvel love, I'm a big fan of practical effects. I love miniatures. I love matte paintings. I love these, the set redressing. Mm-hmm. I'm sure it was just they filmed a lot of horror films in North Carolina. They did a Hellraiser 3 there as well, I believe. So I think there's probably like a city block that they use, kind of like a backlot like they have.
Sure.
But the fact that it's so, and when you study these kind of more B movie pictures in terms of production, they're using the same street 7 times for the scenes, but the fact that they redress it so that that they're driving the car down different streets is excellent. It's it covers up for where the budget lacks a little bit, but also, as I've explained in other podcasts, I like the ambition versus by stretching that budget as far as you can.
True.
that will win me over more than a polished CGI.
I'm with you there. Closing thoughts, fellas? Mitch,
Mitch.
I defer to you. You are the
I
guest.
My last closing thought is I think from the beginning of the movie, one of the things that sets it apart is the moment of his resurrection is not glorious and beautiful. It's
Mhm.
clumsy and sad, and
Mhm.
it just, I think it really sets the whole thing up. It's not a moment of triumph. It's horror and confusion for
Mhm.
him, and the movie just really takes off from there.
Yeah,
And
and
I love it, love it, love it.
it's it inhales and exhales with that sadness constantly, and I dig that. Because I know Will's dropping the idea of quips or taking joy in his path despite the sadness, but I feel like the sadness never goes away. That's the big quotient that chops him down. No matter what is, I'm still dead, and I'm still losing. I've still lost what I've lost. I can save what I can save. I can recoup what I can recoup. But at the end of the day, I'm going to crawl right back into that grave. And
Mhm.
that reverberation of emotionality is enough for me to not make this, a hero wins, hero goes off in the sunset movie.
Mhm. Yeah, sure. I feel you on that one. It also could be something that I need to revisit. It's definitely worth watching. Like, I didn't sit through it and go, well, I saw that, I'm done. Like, there's enough interesting material. I also feel like there's probably a lot of stuff in the background or the set design, or even that opening shot where it kind of goes through the cityscape to get to the crow's, I just call him the crow, the crow's home where the murder happened.
Hmm.
I'm sure there's things I can look at and see and explore. So it's definitely a film worth exploring. And the other thing is, no one ever said in life that, you know we've all done this with music, we've done this with movies, we've done this with books. you know your initial take on it, if you watch it 10 years later, or in Mitch's case, he watches it every year, I'm sure he gets a new appreciation, he finds something new about it. Like, it never has to be the end all be all, your final decision. So maybe this is how it hit me now, but maybe I'll watch it again, and especially with your guys' thoughts, and go, okay, maybe I was wrong, maybe this is different. So I got an open mind, I'm willing to see it
I
again.
dig it. I dig it. I'll take that optimism.
Yeah.
Will, you want to hit us with the closer?
All right. Follow us on Twitter at Cinephile Fit and on Facebook at Cinephile Hissy Fits Podcast. Also, find us both on Letterboxd. I think we've decided to abandon the poll because we've never posted one. We probably never will.
I
Uh,
know.
but I am interested in hearing your thoughts, because I want to know if The Crow has a lot of lovers. It's tough to find a hater in this world for The Crow. So, anyone agree with me, please? Or, do you agree with Mitch? And do you agree with Don? So let us know. Please talk to us. We love your captive audience. We love your social media participation. I will gladly talk to you and fight with you on the Twitter. Cinephile Hissy Fits is a 25YL media podcast brought to you by Ruminations Radio Network.com. Please visit, rate, review, and subscribe. If you enjoyed this show, we have more where that came from, with interesting hosts, indeed, and more wonderful guests. This is Mitch, I believe, is our second guest on the show.
I believe
If
second by
by
the time this publishes. Yes, sir.
Yeah, by probably our second guest. So
Unless
Thanks for
unless
having me.
Mitch kicks this can down the road where he's like the fifth guest.
yeah, well, you know what? He's the editor, so
I
we
know,
can blame
right?
him if it doesn't make any sense if someone's listening to this in 2026. And
Uh-huh.
this is Cinephile Fit episode 350, and we're talking about, hey, Mitch was our second guest for The Crow. That's his fault. All available on iTunes, Spotify, and anywhere you find your favorite shows.
Mitch, thanks for being here tonight. You have the floor now. Tell us where people can find you, your work, your show, all the things.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks again for having me. You can check out my show, Ruminations from the Red Room. You can get it on iTunes and Spotify and all the same places these guys were just mentioning. And come visit us at ruminationsradionetwork.com. It is the place to be. A lot of great guys there, and you'll find some like minded folks. So come check it out.
Sweet. well, the two of us are going to murder you. Simple as that. Now,
Oh.
if you could, now if you
I'll
can
come back from the grave, and then for the first 45 minutes, I'm going to be really cool and edgy and play my guitar, and then I'm going to quip you to death in the last 45.
You know what though? We get a year though without you, and the hay we can make in that year. Let me tell you. All right, folks. Thanks for a great show.
Hey, this is Charlie, Triple C, from Brevity Box, a new and interesting podcast from the Ruminations Radio Network. If you're a fan of podcasts, we have a lot of great content to offer. Come check out our diverse group of podcasts and hosts at ruminationsradionetwork.com.